Automation has become a kind of modern faith, a promise that once the right tools are installed, effort dissolves and income flows. But automation does not create systems. It only amplifies the ones that already exist. And what it amplifies is not your intention. It amplifies your structure. This is why automation feels like freedom for some builders and like collapse for others. The difference is not software. It is timing. Automating too early does not save time. It converts confusion into code. It freezes fragile assumptions into processes. It removes friction before meaning has been clarified. And when meaning is unclear, friction is not the enemy. It is the teacher. Before something is automated, it must be understood. Before it is scaled, it must be predictable. Before it is delegated to machines, it must be able to survive contact with reality. Otherwise, automation doesn't reduce effort. It hides error. A system that is not yet stable uses friction to signal what is wrong. Conversations reveal objections. Manual follow-ups reveal breakdowns. Repetition reveals which steps actually matter. Human involvement exposes where value is unclear and where handoffs fail. These signals disappear when automation is introduced too soon. When software absorbs a broken process, the feedback loop weakens. Problems no longer appear as conversations. They appear as quiet churn, drop-offs, confusion, unused features, unexplained losses. The system continues to operate, but it stops teaching. And a system that cannot teach you cannot mature. This is why the question is never, can this be automated? The question is, what would be lost if it were? If automating removes learning, it is premature. If it removes judgment, it is dangerous. If it removes responsibility, it is destabilizing. Early systems need friction because friction forces contact. With users, with objections, with behavior, with reality, automation reduces contact. It inserts a layer between you and what is happening. That layer can be powerful, but only when the structure underneath it is already sound. The first stage of system building is not automation, it is embodiment. You perform the actions. You experience the resistance. You hear the language. You watch the handoffs fail. You feel where momentum slows. You see what questions repeat. You discover what actually moves outcomes. This stage is not about efficiency. It is about literacy. You are learning the internal grammar of your system. Without this literacy, automation is blind. Once behavior becomes predictable, a shift occurs. Actions stop feeling exploratory and start feeling repeatable. Outcomes begin to show patterns. Inputs correlate with results. At this point, friction stops teaching and starts taxing. It no longer reveals new information. It only consumes attention. This is the first legitimate moment to automate. Not when a task is annoying. Not when it is time-consuming. But when it has become boring. Boredom is structural. It means the action has stabilized. It means its role is understood. It means its variability has narrowed. It means the system no longer needs interpretation to execute it. Automation exists to preserve human attention, not replace human intelligence. When intelligence is still required, automation removes the very thing that makes the system improve. Healthy automation follows clarity. You know what happens. You know why it happens. You know what good looks like. You know what wrong looks like. Only then can you design a process that does not require constant correction. This is also why automating output before automating understanding is so destructive. Scaling traffic before trust is clarified. Scaling funnels before conversion logic is stable. Scaling content before positioning is coherent. You end up accelerating noise. Noise at speed feels like momentum. But it is not growth. It is drift. When automation is introduced at the right time, something very different happens. The system does not just move faster, it becomes quieter. Decisions reduce. Exceptions narrow. Attention is freed. Not because less is happening, but because fewer things require you. At this stage, automation no longer hides reality. It exposes it. When processes are consistent, small deviations become visible. When flows are stable, weak points surface. When inputs are clean, outputs become legible. Automation creates contrast. And contrast makes improvement possible. This is where automation stops being a convenience and starts becoming an instrument. It measures. It signals. It enforces. It remembers. But notice what it does not do. It does not decide. It does not interpret. It does not redesign. It does not correct meaning. Those remain human functions. The mature relationship to automation is not dependency. It is delegation. You assign machines what they are structurally suited for: repetition, coordination, storage, triggering, and execution. You reserve for yourself what systems cannot do, sense, judge, reframe, and design. When this boundary is violated, systems hollow out. They continue operating but stop evolving. They optimize paths that should have been questioned. They reinforce offers that should have been refined. They scale narratives that should have been corrected. Automation makes systems efficient. Humans make them intelligent. This is why automation must always follow architecture. Architecture defines what should happen. Automation ensures it happens consistently. When architecture is missing, automation invents one by accident. Another mistake appears at the opposite end of the spectrum, refusing to automate once clarity exists. Builders stay manually involved not because the system needs them, but because identity has attached to motion. They confuse relevance with involvement. They equate control with proximity. They delay automation because stepping back feels like disappearance. But unautomated stability becomes its own trap. When repetition is preserved inside people instead of processes, scale becomes headcount. Knowledge becomes brittle. Quality becomes mood-dependent. Growth becomes negotiation. And income remains exposed to fatigue, turnover, and attention drift. This is the second correct moment to automate. When human involvement is no longer increasing intelligence, only carrying load. At this stage, not automating is not wisdom. It is structural selfishness. It protects comfort at the expense of continuity. It keeps the system personal when it should become transferable. Systems become assets only when they no longer depend on specific nervous systems to function. The deeper purpose of automation is not efficiency. It is memory. Processes remember what worked. Triggers remember what to do next. Dashboards remember what is changing. Pipelines remember how value moves. When a system remembers, learning accumulates. When learning accumulates, improvement compounds. When improvement compounds, income detaches from hours. This is the true promise automation quietly carries. Not freedom from work, freedom from repetition. Repetition belongs in systems. Design belongs in people. So the question going forward is not how much you can automate. It is whether what you are automating deserves to be preserved. If a process cannot survive scrutiny, it should not survive software. If a flow is not yet trusted, it should not yet be automated. If a handoff still requires interpretation, it is not ready. But when a part of your system has earned its shape through contact with reality, when it behaves, teaches, and holds under pressure, automation becomes an act of respect. You are saying, this is real enough to preserve. And that is when automation stops being a gamble and becomes architecture. Not the creation of motion, but the protection, meaning